How's it going, guys, and welcome to another video. In today's video, I'm going to be speaking about my complete pathway from when I first landed in Australia to ultimately getting my citizenship as a cybersecurity professional. So the main goal of making this video is so that I can share with you guys what are the different things I did as a security professional, which immensely helped me in getting my permanent residency and eventually my citizenship. So if you're someone who's an international student who's looking to move here for your studies, or you're looking to move here for job prospects, I'm sure this video will help you. So I highly recommend that you watch this video till the very end. One thing that I would like to say before I start speaking about my journey, I would like to mention that this video is not going to be like one of those where I'm going to start off with a sob story saying I moved to this country with 2 bags and a passport and stuff like that. I'm not here trying to glorify any struggles, because everyone goes through their own struggles. So this is going to be not an emotional video. It's going to be facts that these are the things you've got to do, and you've got to do what you've got to do. So jumping straight in, just like many students that move to Australia for their studies, I decided to move to Monash University in Melbourne, where I selected a degree called as Masters of Network and Security. And that was my official entry into Australia. So I got a student visa. I moved here in February of 2018. And the course that I was enrolled in was a master's course, which was 2 years long. Now, as part of this degree, I had a lot of valuable units that I studied focused towards networking and cybersecurity, such as network fundamentals, network programming, software security, application security, system security, network security, etc. One of the bonuses of getting into this university and doing this specific master's course was that I learned a lot. It was very practical and hands-on focused. So I could own and develop my skills in the fields of networking and security. And secondly, from a PR perspective as well, if you study in the country, then most certainly that's a huge advantage when you're actually filing for your application, as compared to if you're just moving here, let's say on a work sponsorship or without actually studying in the country. And I'll explain why. While I was studying, I was also working in a couple of odd jobs, not in IT, mainly just so that I could get some extra pocket money to, pay rent and buy groceries and all of that stuff. But my actual journey in IT started off when I got my first role as a tech support officer while I was still studying. So I had like 6 or 8 months left for my degree to complete. And that's when I got a role as a support officer working in the help desk, which is why I always say this, is that if you're looking to get into networking or cybersecurity, starting off at the help desk is amazing because you learn a lot and it's a great entry point into the technical domain. So once I got in, I started working, I solved a lot of tickets, got in some valuable Australian industry work experience, which eventually helped me to get my first full-time role. So once I completed my degree, I graduated in December of 2019. And that's when I was rigorously searching for my first full-time role as a network engineer. Now, the reason I was looking for a network engineer role was because if I wanted to apply for my permanent residency, that specific occupation was on a list which is called as a skilled occupation list. So Australia has got a skilled occupation list. So let's say you want to move to this country, make sure you go and check what the skilled occupation list is and whether what you want to study or what you want to work in is on that list or no, and what are the different visas that you can apply for as part of working in that role. So keeping all of this in mind, I knew that, okay, I need to be working as a network engineer. That's what I studied. And if I want to stay back in the country, I should be finding a role as a network engineer. This is when I did some certifications like the CCNA, I did some cloud certifications, and eventually got myself a junior network engineer role for a local company in Melbourne. And this is around February 2020 when I got this role. So from December 2019 to February 2020, it's about 2 or 3 months, I was actually searching, and that's probably relevant even today. Like, you can't immediately get into the job market and expect to get a role. You've got to work a little bit harder, and you've also got to have patience because it takes time. It'll take you like 1 or 2 months. So don't lose your patience and don't be demotivated if you're not getting any calls from companies and recruiters and all of that stuff. So when I got my first role as a network engineer, I worked at this organization for 2 full years. So from February 2020 to February 2022 is when I worked at this company in a network engineering role. While I was working, I was on a temporary graduate visa, which is a 2 year visa that you get after you study like a master's degree or a bachelor's degree. Not every degree qualifies for this, so you've got to check whether or not the course you're studying is going to offer you like a 2 year stay back or no. But I was on this temporary graduate visa while I was working in my first network engineer role. And it was during this time as well where I was very fortunate that along with networking duties, I was also performing a lot of cybersecurity and network security duties. So what this allowed me to do was that when you're applying for your permanent residency in Australia, you've got to make sure that what you've studied and what you work in basically match, and based on that you can then put your application in. So there's something called a skills assessment. So what a skills assessment is that you provide evidence to the skill assessing body. In the case of information technology, it's called as ACS, Australian Computer Society. So what you do is you submit documents about like, this is your degree, your official transcripts, and then you also provide evidence of your duties, like what you're working in. If those two match, then the assessing body is like, okay, this person studied degree A and is also working in a role which uses the knowledge from degree A. So we can say that, okay, this person is judged to be working in this specific occupation. So I studied networking. I was working as a network engineer. I got assessed to apply my PR as a network engineer as well. It was during this period when COVID hit as well. So a lot of people were working from home. I had to go into the office because the role that I was working in, or the company that I was working for, was servicing quarantine hotels. So it was classified as a critical sector. So as a result of that, I had to go into the office. What that also did was that it gave me a very big boost when I wanted to apply for my PR, because I could then prove that I was working in a critical sector, supporting the government, supporting against COVID, and that also went a very long way. So this is where things change a little bit, because while I was applying for my PR as a network engineer, Australia changed things a little bit where they identified cybersecurity as a critical sector or a critical role. And what they said was, if anyone's working in cybersecurity, they will get preferences when applying for their PR. And the specific role that they were looking for was ICT security specialist. So if I wanted to have better chances of getting my PR, I needed to be assessed or working as a security engineer. The good thing for me, and everything fell in place, was that the role that I was performing as a network engineer also had a lot of cybersecurity duties, network security duties, working with firewalls, working with user authentication, IAM, all of that stuff. So I could prove that, okay, while my official title was that of a network engineer, I was also performing a lot of cybersecurity duties. And the degree that I studied was networks and security, or networks and cybersecurity. So that also aligned perfectly well. And I could then assess myself as an ICT security specialist. Once you get your assessment, you can then go ahead and apply for your PR. Now, even within like your whole permanent residency, there are different subclasses. So you got 189, 190. 190 is like a state sponsored one. 189 is a skilled independent one. At the time, 189 was taking a very long time. So I applied for 190 to be sponsored by the state of Victoria, because that is where I lived and worked. I applied that, and as I said, I was working security duties as well. So because I lodged my application as a security specialist, that sort of helped my application to be fast tracked, and I got selected. My application got picked in an invitation round, and I was then able to apply for my PR. And this is somewhere around 2021 where I applied for my PR. And within like 6 or 8 months in 2022, before my temporary graduate visa expired, I got my permanent residency grant as well. So as you can see, it took me 2 years after my master's to get my permanent residency as a security specialist. And once I got my PR, that's also when I changed roles and moved into a more critical sector in a government role. And I worked there for roughly a year, but this role was more specifically focused towards network security. So I was working on a lot of firewalls, and that was pretty much like my bread and butter, working as a network security engineer. In Australia, once you get your permanent residency, you've got to satisfy certain criteria before you apply for your citizenship. So you've got to be living in the country for a year as a permanent resident, and that is one of the criteria before applying for your citizenship. So After finishing 1 year as a PR and working in this government role is when I eventually applied for my Australian citizenship. Now, usually with your Australian citizenship as well, it takes you a while, like year or a year and a half. But probably I'm assuming because I was working in a government role, that sort of worked again in my favor. And I was able to sort of get like a more fast tracked outcome. I don't know if this is true or no, but I just feel comparing it with others that I knew who also applied for their citizenship, mine was fairly quick. So after applying for my citizenship, within like 8 months, again, I had my ceremony, I got my citizenship test done, and eventually got my Australian passport and my Australian citizenship. So if you see the timelines, right from when I landed in the country in 2018 to when I got my citizenship, which was somewhere around November 2023, it took me a little under 6 years to go from completing my degree to getting my first role to getting my PR and getting my citizenship. That's somewhere, what you can expect in terms of timelines if you want to get your citizenship or like permanently settle down in Australia. And speaking about cybersecurity, being a security professional is what helped me get my permanent residency and eventually my citizenship as well. And in saying that, as I mentioned that, cybersecurity is identified as a critical sector and the government is offering more pathways to PR for those working in these critical sectors. Even today, cybersecurity has a skill shortage. So if you're someone who's looking to migrate or move to Australia, if you want to do it as a security professional, then you are in a better position as compared to other, let's say, job roles or domains. But in saying that, I would still say that if you're moving here to study, you're at a higher advantage as compared to someone who's just looking to move here on a sponsorship, either work sponsorship or directly get like a visa while applying offshore. If you're looking to apply for a role while offshore, look for companies that are offering sponsorships. Again, it's not very common that a lot of companies do offer sponsorships. In fact, there's also a thing that in Australia, because cybersecurity roles are sometimes connected to a lot of critical organizations, like you could be working in a government role in cybersecurity, for example, you've got to be at least a permanent resident. Look, in many cases you've got to be a citizen because there are certain clearances you've got to go through, but minimum I would say being a PR helps you get into those type of roles. This was my whole journey in Australia right up to my citizenship. Well, it's been now almost I would say 2 years since I've gotten my citizenship, and working again, I've continued to work in cybersecurity because I absolutely love this domain. And in this country, there is a lot of prospects if you are working as a security professional. I hope you found this video helpful. I hope it helped give you a perspective of what things look like when you want to move to Australia as a security professional. So if you've liked this video, I've also got a lot of other videos on this channel around network engineering, cybersecurity. Do check them out. But one video that I do want you to see is the day in the life of a security professional in Melbourne, Australia. It will give you further context on what it is like to work in this country. You can find that video right here. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.